Right now, somewhere in the world, there is a person with less money than you, less time than you, and far more adversity than you times over. Yet they are happier than you. They are not luckier, and life has not paved a bed of roses for them. The sole secret lies in this. They have quietly built small habits, so minor that if you merely glanced past them, you could easily overlook them. We often spend our youth chasing happiness in the wrong direction. We wait for the next diploma, a higher salary, a new relationship, or some distant milestone, only to realize that the finish line keeps receding while an empty feeling remains behind. That is not your fault. It is a psychological trap called human adaptation. Yet 2,000 years ago, Stoic giants like Marcus Aurelius or Seneca stood before the ruins of an empire, betrayal, and the agony of ultimate loss, and they found unshakable peace. They realized that happiness is not a random gift of circumstance, but something built brick by brick from the very smallest daily actions. In this video, we will not talk about empty theories or toxic positive advice. You are about to discover 9 practical, powerful, and sharp habits from Stoic philosophy. Survival tools that will completely transform how you walk through this coming week. Brace yourself, because the 7th habit is one almost no one talks about, yet it has the power to shatter all your long-standing anxieties. Stay until the end, because your mental metamorphosis begins right now. 1. Master the first few minutes of the day. How does your morning begin? Is the first sound that awakens you not birdsong or the peaceful rhythm of your own breath, but a harsh alarm clock, instantly followed by the blinding glare of a phone screen? In less than 30 seconds after opening your eyes, before your consciousness has even had a chance to take shape, you have unwittingly opened the gates of your mind for the world to flood in. Dozens of unread messages, sensationalized notifications, news items about crises, or the pink-tinted, glamorous lives of strangers on social media, all of them descend upon you in a rush. Before your feet even touch the floor, you have dropped your autonomy and turned yourself into a passive spectator, reading and swept along by someone else's life script. You hand over the steering wheel of your emotions to external circumstances even before you can stand firmly on your own 2 feet. More than 2,000 years ago, the great emperor of the Roman Empire, Marcus Aurelius, also had to face this very trap. Amidst the clutter of power, the heavy responsibilities of an empire, and physical exhaustion, he understood that morning is always the most fragile time. In the private diary notes he left for himself, which we call meditations, today, he used to remind himself. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I am rising to do the work of a human being. Even an emperor holding the lives of millions in his hands had to struggle against his own laziness, his fears, and the inner resistance at the break of every dawn. The difference between him and most of us does not lie in some innate superhuman willpower, but in the fact that he possessed a sacred discipline, establishing a silent ritual before the external storms could strike. Stoic philosophy teaches us an ultimate truth. There are many things outside our control, but the very first moments of a new day belong entirely to your own discretion. When you preserve those first 60 seconds of silence, you are carrying out a quiet inner revolution. This is not about a strict hour of meditation or grueling physical workouts paraded on social media. It is simply 50 to 60 seconds with a warm cup of coffee in a quiet room, a few clumsy lines written in a notebook about what truly matters, or simply asking yourself a sharp question. Today, no matter what happens, who do I want to be? That tiny action creates a solid buffer zone for your nervous system. Instead of reacting impulsively and fearfully to pressures from work or family, you proactively shape your response with dignity and calm. You reclaim authorship of the book of your life, instead of remaining a tired reader flipping through pages. The power of this habit lies in its mechanical nature. Morning energy sets the vibrational frequency for the entire day ahead. If you start your day in chaos, your mind will continue to swirl in chaos. Conversely, if you start with initiative and mindfulness, you will navigate the storms of work with astonishing inner strength. Tomorrow, before your hand touches your phone screen, before the world can scream its demands into your ears, pause for a beat, grant your soul its most pristine space. Because the greatest victory of the day is not finishing piles of emails or meeting every deadline, but mastering yourself from the very moment you open your eyes to greet the new day. 2. Stop arguing with reality. How many times in your life have you stood paralyzed in the middle of a gridlocked afternoon, car horns blaring to suffocate your chest, sweat pouring down, while a helpless roar echoed in your head? Why me? Why is this road always jammed? Or even more bitterly, when you have just received a termination notice, a harsh rejection, or the collapse of a plan you meticulously poured your heart into, you grit your teeth and gnaw on that bitter resentment for weeks on end. You repeat that aggrieved question deep into the night, torturing yourself with what-if assumptions. Yet there is a ruthlessly grim truth. The car remains stuck dead in the crowd, the company's decision cannot be revoked, and time ticks away in despair. That is precisely when we fall into the mind's most sophisticated trap: the meaningless war with reality. Once you have established stillness and mastered the opening moments of your new day, the next major challenge is how you face uninvited upheavals. Stoic philosophy peers through the root of all human suffering and distills a truth. Most pain does not stem from the event itself, but from our stubborn resistance to what has already happened and cannot be undone. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself that the obstacle in the path becomes the path. When you rage at a heavy rainstorm ruining your date, or blame adversity because it shouldn't have happened, you are trying to fight the only opponent that never loses: the past and truth. Scolding a rock for blocking your way is just as foolish as trying to alter a done deal. The rock remains completely unharmed. Only your bare hands bleed from clinging to emptiness. The calmest people are not those who have never tasted bitterness, but those who have trained an entirely different inner reflex. Instead of sinking into the quagmire of a victimized question, "Why is this happening to me?" A question with no answer, keeping you trapped in bitterness and self-pity, they instantly pivot their perspective with an awakening question. Given that this has happened, what is the most useful thing I can do right now? Just a tiny shift in phrasing, yet it carries the energy of a total metamorphosis. It lifts your mind out of the passive swamp to place you in the driver's seat of reality. Someone who loses a job due to injustice will sink into resentment, but someone who understands Stoicism will use that very moment to upgrade their capabilities, drop their pride, and turn the fall into the starting gun for a new beginning. Therefore, starting this week, allow yourself to feel sad and overwhelmed for exactly the first 60 seconds when adversity knocks. But after those 60 seconds, take a deep breath, drop your shoulders, and courageously blurt out, "Now what?" When you stop arguing with reality, the massive energy once eroded by anger returns, granting you the utmost composure and profound wisdom to weather every storm. 3. Clearly defined control writes you. Once you have learned to embrace the present, drop your shoulders, and courageously utter the question, "Now what?" After every upheaval, the next challenge arrives to measure your true mettle. How not to be eroded by things outside your reach? Imagine your mind as a fortified citadel, yet every day you unwittingly throw open the gates, leaving it at the mercy of countless arrows fired by external circumstances. You wake up worrying relentlessly. Will the boss appreciate this report? What do people out there think of my lifestyle? Where is this year's economy heading? Or you even fret over the future of loved ones who have chosen their own distinct paths. We squander up to 90% of our precious life energy on things that never belonged to our decision-making power in the first place. It is a tragic, yet utterly meaningless war. You are trying to bend falling raindrops into circles, trying to grab the steering wheel of a car, plunging down a slope while sitting merely in the passenger seat. That helplessness breeds an anxiety that gnaws at your soul, exhausting you even before you step foot into the actual battle. Over 2,000 years ago, Epictetus, a philosopher who endured the painful, humiliating years of slavery, distilled a truth that liberates the entire human mind. The territory of life is sharply divided into two parts. On one side are things that do not belong to us: the body, reputation, the opinions of others, and the ultimate outcome of every endeavor. On the other side are the only things under our supreme ownership: judgments, desires, will, and our own conduct. The happiest people are not those who ignore the world, but those who have become wisely ruthless with that boundary. They stop leaking energy across things they cannot control. Place this dilemma right on your own workspace. In an important presentation, what belongs to you and what lies beyond reach? Thorough preparation down to every single number, the dedication poured into each slide, the sincerity and calm in your voice. That is the territory belonging to you. Pour 100% of your strength into it. But the board's attitude, the client's nod or shake of the head, or whether your rival plays fair, that is entirely the realm of external circumstances. The ancient philosophers never taught you to shirk responsibility or live apathetically. On the contrary, they taught you to love and work with all your heart, but do your utmost to the limit of your capability. Then let go of the outcome like a leaf, surrendering to the wind. Practicing this demarcation is like plowing and sowing seeds on a plot of land. You can choose when to sow, tend to it day by day, and weed out pests with utmost devotion. Yet you cannot force a seed to sprout tomorrow if storms or droughts strike. Once you grasp that, anxiety yields to a profound inner peace. You stop tossing and turning all night trying to second-guess someone else's attitude, because you understand a comforting truth. Other people's thoughts are their own sky. You have no right to interfere and no obligation to carry them. Starting today, whenever your chest tightens with anxiety, pause for a beat and ask yourself a question as sharp as a dagger. Is this truly within my control right now? If the answer is no, smile and lay that burden down. Channel your entire mind, courage, and subtlety into the smallest things resting right within the palm of your hand. Because true peace does not lie in a flawless outcome out there, but in the serenity deep within a soul that clearly knows its own boundaries. 4. Reflect on yourself before going to sleep. Once you have thoroughly understood the boundaries of control and learned to let go of outcomes beyond your reach, to focus entirely on your own efforts, peace begins to germinate within your soul. Yet, for that peace to be more than a fleeting moment and become a sustainable state, you need an anchor to close out each day. That is when we step through the next door of the inner journey. The art of self-examination before falling asleep. Whenever night falls and the house grows quiet, an invisible sound begins to echo in the minds of most of us. The reverberation of unresolved anxieties, regret over slipped opportunities, or the vague unease that days are slipping through our fingers without leaving anything behind. We carry that entire mess to bed, tossing and turning past midnight, only to have those unaddressed emotions choke our sleep and gnaw at our spirit the next morning. That is the price paid for a life drifting by in unconsciousness. More than 2,000 years ago, the philosopher Seneca, in his letters to his dear friend Lucilius, shared a silent ritual he learned from the elders. When the lamp was extinguished and the room sank into stillness, he conducted a comprehensive audit of the past long day. He asked himself very frank questions. What bad habit did I curb today? What temper did I conquer? In what way have I improved? That was not a trial court or a guilt-ridden torment to self-punish. Seneca advised that this examination must be performed very gently, like a kind friend illuminating the inner self, rather than an enemy seeking ammunition to criticize. Its sole purpose is awakening. You cannot repair and improve what you deliberately avoid looking at. Try applying that to your own real life tonight, under the soft light of the bedroom. Instead of continuing to glue your face to a phone screen, open a small notebook and question yourself through 3 core questions. What went well today and why? Where did I inadvertently stumble or act not in line with my own expectations? And tomorrow, what will I do differently? You do not need an elaborate system or an expensive leather journal. The only thing you need is utter honesty with yourself. The moment you write those reflections down on paper, a miraculous psychological magic happens. You are holding the key to close the door on the old day. Cluttered events, workplace irritations, or someone's careless remark will no longer chase you into your resting space. They have been named, dissected, and neatly placed into the past. You give your brain official permission to relax, lean back against the pillow, and sink into a deep, sound sleep. Because life is not measured by the number of days you have breathed, but by how you have learned and grown through each of those living days. An evening closed in awareness and empathy is the firmest foundation for you to wake up the next morning, ready to write the next chapter of your life with a lightened soul and brilliant wisdom. 5. Anticipate difficulties. Once you have completed the soul's audit before sleep, to close out the old day fully and serenely, your mind is ready to step into a new depth of resilience. The greatest challenge of human life is not whether adversity will appear, but that it always ambushes us while we are fast asleep in the illusion of permanent peace. That is when we need the next sharp piece of mental armor. The art of premeditating difficulties. Modern society often infects our minds with toxic positivity, telling us that if we only think in pink, life will be entirely rosy. But ancient philosophers chose a path running completely counter to the crowd through a practice named premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of misfortunes. Seneca once advised his friend that before beginning any journey or project, one should spend a few minutes imagining the worst-case scenarios that could occur: betrayal, failure, illness, or unexpected obstacles. This is by no means pessimistic or self-loathing. Modern psychology has proven that athletes or entrepreneurs who practice defensive pessimism generally experience less anxiety and achieve significantly higher performance. Why? Because most panic does not stem from the flame of adversity itself, but from that flame striking when you stand naked without a shred of defensive armor. When traffic makes you late for an important meeting, someone who has never considered that scenario sinks into blinding rage. Conversely, someone who spent 30 seconds that morning visualizing a traffic jam will smile, pull out their phone to call ahead, and solve the problem with a cool head. Every morning upon waking, Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that today he would encounter arrogant, ungrateful, and selfish people, not to hate them, but so that when they appeared, he would not be so shocked as to lose the dignity of a human being. Therefore, before a tense meeting, an interview, or a major turning point in life, do not merely paint visions of brilliant success. Courageously confront the worst possible version and ask yourself, if that happens, what is my next step? Once your mind has already lived through that painful scenario in imagination, the sharp thorn of reality will no longer be able to make you bleed when it strikes. You are no longer passively waiting for storms to crush you, but have become a seasoned captain, smiling to welcome rough seas, because every surprise has already been accounted for within the soul's preparation. 6. Proactively create voluntary discomfort. Once you have equipped your mind with solid armor, by courageously visualizing the storms that may occur in life, you realize that fear no longer has the power to envelop you. Yet, a resilient soul cannot exist solely on theoretical pages. It needs to be forged through the red-hot fire of reality. That is when we arrive at one of the deepest and most unexpected tests of character from the ancient philosophers. The art of voluntarily inducing discomfort. Look around our modern life today. Every convenience is designed to serve human maximum comfort. With just a touch on a screen, hot food is delivered right to your door. With a single button, air conditioning banishes the summer heat. Elevators lift us to towering heights without a single drop of sweat. We are immersed in an invisible cocoon of comfort. But have you ever wondered what the price is behind that seemingly perfect convenience? It is the gradual erosion of endurance. When the body and mind have never once had to face adversity or deprivation, we become as fragile as greenhouse flowers. Just a minor mishap, a power outage, a makeshift meal, or a mild illness is enough to make your nervous system shatter, collapse, and cry out in agony. Infinite comfort in large doses is the sweet poison that weakens human will. Over 2,000 years ago, the philosopher Seneca, a man who once possessed immense wealth, towering power, and lived amidst the extravagance of the Roman Empire, had a habit that shocked the world. Periodically, he would strip off his expensive silk garments to wear the roughest clothes, eat Spartan meals of dry bread and water, and sleep on a hard mat right on the floor. He was neither crazy nor a self-tormentor. Seneca did this completely consciously and intentionally. He wanted to test himself to answer a big question. Is poverty and deprivation truly as terrifying as people imagine? Through those voluntary experiences, he realized a liberating truth. The fear of poverty is far more terrifying and destructive to the mind than poverty itself. When you know for certain that you can survive, and even thrive, under the barest conditions, your dependency on material things instantly vanishes. You are no longer a slave to comfort. That is the ancient root of practices we still see traces of in modern life. Taking cold showers on winter mornings, practicing intermittent fasting, working out to the point of drenching sweat, walking upstairs instead of waiting for a mindless elevator, or refusing smartphones for an entire weekend. These small challenges are not meant to torture the body, but serve as a sharp psychological training method. They create calluses for our emotions and nervous system. When you proactively choose inconvenience within your control, you send a powerful message to your subconscious. I do not fear deprivation. I master circumstances. Circumstances do not master me. Furthermore, voluntary discomfort brings another priceless gift that money can never buy. The capacity to resurrect gratitude from the simplest things. When you have spent a day eating only plain food, a bowl of cold white rice the next day suddenly becomes sweet and remarkably precious. When you have endured freezing cold for a few minutes under a shower, the returning warm water suddenly transforms into a wonderful gift of creation. Convenience tends to make people numb. We are used to taking everything for granted, only to feel wasteful and devastated when a tiny bit is missing. But when you proactively drop self-indulging habits, the trap of entitlement is dismantled. You realize you need very little to feel fulfilled and happy. Starting this week, challenge yourself with a small action. Do not wait for storms to strike before learning how to endure. Choose a familiar convenience, the elevator, the air conditioning button, or staring into a screen, and set it aside for 24 hours. Walk on your own 2 feet, face inconvenience with a calm smile. You will be amazed to find that, deep inside your daily soft shell, you are much stronger and more resilient than you ever imagined. This is not just character, but the state of a soul aligned with nature and master of itself, free in the mind, resilient in the body, and complete in every single moment of the present. 7. Selectively curate information and nourish the mind. Once you have manually trained your body and mind with resilient calluses through voluntary discomfort, realizing that you can stand firm against all material deprivation, you step toward a challenge no less subtle and dangerous awaiting you. That is the silent battlefield taking place right within the mind every day, where endless streams of information incessantly erode your peace. That is when we must face the 7th survival principle: curating information and nourishing the mind. Pause for a beat and ask yourself, every day, when you pick up your phone, what is actually entering your mind? Is it peace, wisdom, or clarity? Or is it a murky current of sensational news, algorithm-inflated outrage, endless internet arguments, and suffocating toxic comparisons? We live in an era where human attention is a fiercely hunted resource. Social media platforms are not optimized to bring you happiness. They are optimized for outrage, agitation, and endless, aimless scrolling. You unintentionally marinate in the anxieties and bitterness of tens of thousands of strangers around the world, only to wonder at the end of the day why your chest feels weighed down by nameless insecurities. The philosopher Seneca, in his letters to his friend Lucilius over 2,000 years ago, warned against this trap with a sharp piece of advice. Reading aimlessly, skimming through countless authors just to kill time, will make the mind shallow, restless, and forever anchorless. He urged a return to the great thoughts that have survived the harsh tests of time, works that have endured through thousands of years of history. Why? Because a book, a thought that can persist and retain its value across centuries, through all the changes of empires and languages, surely contains a core truth about human nature. Choosing to read a page from Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, or Seneca's Letters from a Stoic, every morning is like inviting one of humanity's greatest teachers to sit at your dining table. Instead of dialoguing with chaos, with the screaming demands for attention from the crowd on social media, you are conversing with an emperor who endured plague, war, and betrayal, yet maintained an astonishing serenity in his soul. One side leaves you agitated, outraged, and empty. The other leaves you with stillness, depth, and character. This is not an extreme call, demanding that you smash your phone or live like a hermit, high in the mountains. The sages never taught people to run away from reality. It is a reminder of conscious curation. You are extremely picky about what goes into your stomach. You check expiration dates, refusing dirty, toxic foods. But why are you terrifyingly casual when letting your mind feed indiscriminately on garbage information every day? Begin safeguarding the sacred space of the mind with a small yet resolute change. Dedicate 15 to 20 minutes each day, completely detached from endless notification feeds, to immerse yourself in profound pages of reading. Read slowly, ponder every word, and let great thoughts wash away the dust of daily life. You will realize that once the mind's nourishment is purified, the way you perceive the world changes completely. You are no longer easily led by media crises or petty jealousy. You become a fortified citadel where only wisdom, composure, and compassion have the right to enter and dwell. 8. Practice gratitude in detail. Once you have purified the mind's nourishment, slam the door on toxic streams of information and replace them with humanity's great thoughts. Your chest begins to feel a rare serenity. Yet, for that serenity to truly bear fruit as a positive source of life energy, you need a final catalyst to nurture the soul every day. That is when we step into one of Stoicism's deepest healing disciplines, the art of practicing gratitude in detail. Look back at how we usually say thank you in daily life. It appears as an unconscious social reflex. Thank you for helping me. Or generic social media status updates like, I am grateful for my family and this life. Those words repeat so often they become hollow, slipping right through the mind without leaving a single ripple of emotion. The human brain is a strange adaptive machine. It quickly grows accustomed to and overlooks anything repeated without variation. As a result, we live amid countless blessings of life, yet still feel empty, deprived, and dissatisfied. Over 2,000 years ago, right in the opening chapter of Meditations, Emperor Marcus Aurelius did not write vague tributes. Before discussing politics or military strategy, he listed every name and specific detail about the people who crossed his path: his grandfather's gentleness, his mother's humility and generosity, or the lesson in patience from an old teacher. That was not gratitude like a sweet greeting card sold off the shelf. It was a forensic appreciation, sharp, meticulous, and touching every nook and cranny of memory. Modern psychology has proven that when you force the brain to pause at a detailed level, rather than skimming the surface, a biological transformation occurs. When you close your eyes and tell yourself, I am grateful that my friend quietly called me at 11 o'clock last night, just because she heard my voice drop a little, even though she had to wake up early for work the next day. At that moment, your brain is not merely reading a positive slogan. You are compelling your mind to travel back in time, truly reliving that warm moment, breathing that atmosphere again, and feeling the full embrace of human care. The happiest people are not those who wait for a natural feeling of gratitude to appear before smiling. They treat gratitude as an iron discipline, a mental exercise practiced steadily every day, regardless of whether the outside world is falling into storms or despair. Look at your dullest day, a passerby yielding space, a warm morning coffee, or a sigh of relief when your car doesn't stall in the middle of the road. Most of us pass right by those things as if they were granted. But if you pause for a beat and name them clearly, you will realize how deeply the universe is cradling you. Starting tonight, instead of closing your day with fatigue and complaints, try picking up a pen and writing down 3 of the most specific things life has gifted you today. Do not write generally. Write in detail, as if you were recounting a precious gift. You will be amazed to find that a person's true wealth does not lie in how much money sits in their account, but in how many wonders they can perceive hidden within the simplest moments of ordinary life. 9. Being mindful of death to cherish the present says. Once you have ignited the soul with the flame of detailed gratitude, cherishing every breath and the small gifts life bestows, you stand before the final step and the pinnacle of Stoic wisdom. It is the ultimate principle, acting as the master key to all peace. Consciousness of death to cherish the present, memento mori. In the triumphal processions of ancient Rome, when a general stood at the pinnacle of glory, receiving roaring applause from tens of thousands of people, a slave was usually positioned directly behind him. That slave's task was extraordinarily unique, to continuously whisper into the general's ear the phrase, memento mori. Remember that you are mortal. Amidst the most brilliant and proudest moment, that reminder served like a sharp blade cutting through arrogance, pulling humanity back to the fragile truth of human existence. Marcus Aurelius also reminded himself in his journal that he could depart this life at any very moment, and that exact thought became the subtle yardstick for every thought, word, and action during the time he had left. Most of us live as though we possess infinite time. We squander our youth on petty anger, on prolonged arguments born solely of massive egos, on aimless evenings of internet scrolling, or by postponing apologies and words of love to our loved ones under the illusion that tomorrow is still there. Procrastination and resentment can only exist when a person hallucinates that they hold eternity in their grasp. Yet when you truly look straight at the truth that this life is finite, that with every passing sunset there is another day you can never reclaim, everything suddenly gets sifted through with astonishing clarity. Useless grudges suddenly become petty and far too costly to waste time on. Childish pride abruptly turns to ashes. When death is placed in the corner of the room as a silent mentor, it brings neither gloom nor fear. On the contrary, it is the sharpest filter saving you from mediocrity. It forces you to ask yourself, if today were the last day of my life, would I continue to spend this precious time on anger or squander it on meaningless things? The moment you realize your pool of time is limited, you stop waiting for a perfect moment to live. You will call the one you love to apologize. You will embrace your parents without hesitation, and you will pour your entire heart and soul into the present work with utmost reverence. Memento mori is not meant to mourn the end, but serves as the most powerful awakening to truly begin living. Because when you know you will depart, every single moment in the present instantly transforms into an eternal miracle.